It's time to put on your thinking caps and to be thinking about what is your headline for June 20, 2023. A headline that's exciting, disruptive, or exhilarating for the world of orchestras. And to take us through this segment, I'm pleased to introduce Graham Parker, General Manager of WQXR and Vice President of New York Public Radio.
August 28th, 1963, Martin Luther King stood on the Mall at Washington and uttered the famous lines, "I have a dream." It was a vision for the future, it was a rallying cry, it was an inspiration for what was possible. I have a dream. What he didn't say was, I have a plan. He said, I have a dream. He didn't have PowerPoint slides. He didn't introduce a mission and vision statement. He didn't have bullet points. He said, I have a dream. He said, I do not have a plan. Sorry, he didn't say I have a plan. I have a dream. It was a dream. It was looking forward. He didn't exactly know where it was going, but he said, I have a dream. And he also wasn't literally speaking as the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. He was speaking as a leader, as separate from his organization. He stood up and said, I've got an idea, I want to go in this direction, I want to take a lot of people with me. And he stepped out of himself, and off he went. So, this afternoon, we're all going to step out of ourselves and we're going to dream a little bit. We are going to step away from our orchestras for a little bit. We are going to get into that space of creativity where we all came into this field being super creative people, and we're going to have a go being really bold and dreamy and not exactly knowing where it's going. So now we're going to get into the touchy-feely bit of the afternoon. Are you ready to get a little touchy-feely? You're not going to actually touch anyone, but I do want you to get a little uncomfortable. So one of the first things I want you to do is not refer to yourself for the next 45 minutes as anything to do with your orchestra. I am uninterested in where you work. So the first thing you're going to do is, everyone stand up, please. Everyone stand up and take off your name badges. Take off your name badges and put them face down on your table, please. I'm uninterested, we are all uninterested in where you work. And I'm banning the following phrase. I do not want to hear the phrase, at my orchestra, for the next 40 minutes, okay? So I don't care where you work, and you're not going to start anything with, at my orchestra, okay? Because that's just a recipe for the sameness. Anyway, and now I want you to do the touchy-feely bit. I want you to turn to someone next to you. You can know them or not know them, but I want you to turn and literally face them, 180 degrees, look at each other. I want you to stare into their eyes. I want you to stare into their eyes. Shh, stay with me, stay with me. Stare into their eyes. Shh, listen up, listen up. And you're going to tell them your name, just your name, remember, because we're uninterested in where you work. And you're going to say, I have a dream for America's orchestras. Do that. Look at them. I see a lot of people looking in other directions. Stare them in the face. Do it again. And the second thing you're going to say is, I am the future of America's orchestras. Okay, good. Sit down. Thank you. Okay. Now we feel all a little uncomfortable. That was the whole idea, but we've shifted the energy. So what's going to happen for the next 40 minutes is, we've got 5 amazing imaginators who are going to come up and give 3-minute, really tight ideas about the future of 2023. Then we need responses from you. There are microphones in the room. I want you at microphones. And you've got about 30 seconds to respond, okay? Or give us your ideas. We've also got a fantastic hashtag, Imagining 2023. Please use it. Pull out your phones. This is the time to actively switch on your cell phones and use them while the performance is going on. We're breaking barriers here. And I want you to tweet, and we're going to be pulling up tweets on the wall as you're talking, as people are talking, and then we're going to wrap it up at the end. So my pleasure to introduce our first Imaginator, if I can get the timer thing to work suddenly, is Gary Golden. Start.
All right, thank you. My title is The New Culture Makers, Orchestra Musicians named Time Magazine Person of the Year 2023. It all started in 2013, when the Philadelphia Orchestra, stuck on a tarmac in Beijing, was recorded playing a short piece which went viral, and over 2 million individuals saw that performance. By the summer of 2014, a group of about 200 musicians had created, refined, and signed a manifesto to expand the role of orchestra musicians as leading culture makers within their local communities. It was time to expand musicians and their sense of artistry and build bridges to other big cultural waves, notably fashion, food, visual arts, and lifelong learning. The 2014 manifesto included a roadmap, which included training, professional development around entrepreneurship and business, and of course, a new labor contract. Unions negotiated revenue shares of entrepreneurial concepts conceived, supported, or managed, or outsourced by musicians. And the 2015 League Conference was devoted entirely to business model innovation. It was 2016 to 2023 that were the most innovative years in orchestras in recent memory. In 2016, the story in the art media world was all about fashion. A small group of musicians led projects to link fashion and orchestral experiences. The first step was convincing fellow musicians to tap their inner fashionista and rethink their stage presence. Building on the insights from a very real Baltimore Symphony and Parsons School project in 2013, there were regional concepts held in which we developed new, locally oriented things that we wear, 4 words, for orchestra members. Within a few months, fashion houses, large and small, were beginning to sign lucrative sponsorship contracts with orchestras across the nation. What would the world of musicians be wearing was more of the buzz than what will they be playing. In 2018, a renegade group of violists challenged the notion of entering right or left on the stage and paraded down the middle of the aisle, demonstrating their beautiful garments to the crowd. The next step after the orchestra was reinventing the audience fashionista, tapping the inner fashionista of the audience. Soon, beautifully decorated pop-up truck trailers filled the streets and parking lots of orchestra venues, filled with gowns and costumes from boutique fashion houses from around the world, as patrons rented outfits that they might never own or wear in public, but they did at the orchestra. By 2023, fashion-derived revenues were almost 20% of income for most orchestras across the country. Food is the next thing. For years, the rise of restaurants was a threat to orchestra attendance. Now it was time for musicians to take it back. They led an expansion of food-related programs, signing contracts with artisanal food carts and spin-off. Oh my gosh, time done. Wow. Then there were celebrity chefs partnering with contemporary composers, food-themed programs, and that is the end of my time. That was a terrible ending, but I think you get the point. Thank you. I was told to stop.
Thank you. We are going to try and keep this really tight. My great pleasure now to introduce our opening conference speaker, now to wrap us all up, Elizabeth Merritt.
Thank you, thank you. I'm going to hark back to one of my themes in my opening address, which was find your central core value and let all of the variables morph themselves around that central core. I had the opportunity on Tuesday to attend 3 concerts. I got to hear David Robertson rehearsing the youth orchestra. I got to hear the youth orchestra perform, and then I got to hear the St. Louis Symphony. And thinking back on it, I found myself realizing that if I had to choose only one of those 3 experiences to be able to do, I would have chosen hearing the youth orchestra rehearse, which left me with the conundrum. If that's what I, as a moderately lay, sophisticated musical person, would choose, how do you work the value proposition of excellence? Who is it who's willing to pay for that top level of performance rather than enjoying seeing the process behind the scenes or enjoying hearing students play, because to me they sounded beautiful? So that's my story, is about how do you have a future in which you've invented a financial model that supports excellence as that one core thing with all other variables modifying around it. So I hacked the future. I actually reached into the computer databases of newspapers in 2023 and I plucked out this headline: Congress passes Arts Patronage Tax Deductibility Act, providing full tax deductibility for private support of individual visual and performing artists. And then I paid the premium rate to access the whole article. On the heels of this news came a second announcement, a call for auditions for the New South Orchestra, a musician-founded organization dedicated to musical excellence. A classical musician today has limited opportunities to focus purely on their art, said New South spokesperson cellist Mia Lamb. The majority of orchestras are premised on community service. Even in the Big Six, musicians spend a significant portion of their time on social engagement, education, and community service. The New South Orchestra is currently concluding a successful capital campaign to create a state-of-the-art performance space and a modest endowment. For operating funds, the new orchestra has created a funding model that will allow us to focus on artistic excellence by expecting those most invested in that excellence, the musicians themselves, to fund the organization. Each musician, selected through a rigorous process of global auditions, will be expected to bring with them to the job their own salary plus overhead. Some musicians will raise this funding through tapping their individual fan bases built through social media and mobilized through crowdfunding. Some, facilitated by the legislation passed today, will find individual patrons. Some may fund their participation through personal wealth. This model will enable the New South to offer free admission to all our performances, helping to build a broad and diverse audience for symphonic music.
Okay, so for my vision of orchestras in 2023, I've tried to extrapolate some of the current trends in our work, see what the logical conclusion might be. And my headline announces Orchestra, the new crowd-controlled ensemble. Jesse and Henry Ford, you may want to leave the room or something at this point. The orchestra is at the heart of, the audience, is at the heart of what we all do. But by 2023, their lives may be even more fragmented, chaotic, time-poor than they are now. So we need to offer choices for the audience. Choices about timings, about repertoire, performance locations, choices about what types of visualizations or dance or other media that people want within the performance space. And we already have these technologies available to use our audiences as our programmers. We should let them take control. But that's not to suggest that our roles as programmers are dead. There's an ever greater need, in my opinion, for curation of our programs. Audiences want someone who's going to be able to create an amazing experience for them from the multiplicity of choices available. Curation is a commodity that has a real value, and curation can be monetized. So by 2023, orchestra probably won't mean the same collection of instruments that's been around since the 18th century and is performing classical music. And the orchestra's members certainly won't need to be in the same building, in the same city, same country, or same planets to perform together. We've proved that already. We've seen that happen. So a valid performance doesn't need to have everyone in the same space, and that includes the audience. You can have an ever more immersive experience and performance through a device. It's already progressing. And the one thing that I will absolutely put money on here today is that by 2023, we'll have, or I'll definitely have, all sorts of shiny toys that allow you to have immersive experiences, the best seat in the house from your own home, plane, or your automated car. And it's our responsibility to research, develop, and prototype these technologies with our musicians. The collective live experience will always have a place. Audiences need a space to escape their ever-connected world, and a place where you can recover from device fatigue and have the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And what's exciting for me is that in 2023, there's a generation emerging in their 30s who've always had the internet. And for 20 years, they've had ubiquitous access to any music they want, whenever they want. And that generation will accept anything. They'll accept collaborations with physicists, poets, artists, technologists, sports coaches, hackers, anyone. For me, on my iPod, Boulez and David Bowie sit side by side. They're under B. And Boulez talked about the ensemble of possibilities, and I think that's what the Orchestra of 2023 is, the ensemble of possibilities. To be honest, we might get there sooner. Thank you.
So it's now my pleasure to welcome up to the stage Mark Niehaus.
In my orchestra, no one follows the rules. I was the principal trumpet of my orchestra for 15 years before I became executive director in September. That's why I'm on this stage. I haven't done anything yet. I represent something that might work. Might. My headline for 2023 is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology releases a universal translator for management to musician, musician to management communication. If you've ever played with online translators, like a Google Translate, you could put in, and you could write, how do I say I want to eat a hot dog in French? And it would come out, Je veux manger un chien chaud. And if you put that in French back in and translate it into English, it comes out completely differently. This is what happens in our communication process. So I wrote down a couple of ideas about, for instance, if managers say sustainable, musicians hear pay cut. If musicians say artistic excellence, managers hear higher salaries. If musicians hear if management says community engagement, musicians hear under-rehearsed concerts. If musicians hear work rules, musicians hear abuse. This goes on and on and on. So my hope is in 2023, we will remove this barrier between the people who play in orchestras and the people who run orchestras, and the people who play will run, and the people who run will play. Because that's what's going to make this thing work. And I'm going to come in under time.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. What's that? You got 4 minutes? Just as Stanford, and I'll use up his minute, in case you're wondering what everyone does for a living who came up on the stage, check out your programs. Also, the full bios are on the website too, so if you want to check it out. So it's my pleasure now to introduce, hold on, you're covering up the timer. It's not going to work. No. Stanford Thompson.
Thanks. We've been imagining for a really, really long time. As I've prepared for this, I've went back, I've read lots of stuff that several people in this room have said, and we've been saying pretty much the same thing for the past 30 years. What I want to encourage everybody in this room is to reimagine, and reimagine this idea that, that societies have failed. Where were the musicians? And the question is were your musicians there to help, or were your musicians not there to help? Where it's really obvious to see where things are going wrong. Of all of the most important national priorities that we have, preparing our children is definitely one of the most important. To see what's happening with the achievement gap in the Twin Cities, some of the worst rates in the country. To see what's happening in education in California, some of the worst in the country. To see the violence that goes on in Chicago, again, some of the worst in the country. To watch school districts in my hometown like Philadelphia, and other cities like Chicago, Atlanta, even to see the things that are happening in Boston and New York. The question is, where were the musicians when all of these things were going down 10 years ago? Today's children face the promise of a new century of unparalleled opportunities in which technologies, improvements in health, expanding economies, and other advances create the hope that their future will be the brightest. But there are too many obstacles that these kids face that include poverty, violence, child abuse, limited educational opportunities, and unhealthy behaviors. The devastating economic, social, and human costs of these obstacles are indisputable. Some of these costs across the United States top $250 billion in lost revenues and taxes. Where were the orchestras to help fill some of that gap and recover that big gap? You need $40 million to survive? Great. What about the $250 billion that are lost in these kids not becoming anything? That figure of $250 billion by 2023 is estimated to be somewhere around $400 billion. And of course, that's money not invested in education and unfortunately not invested in the arts. So, of course, I come here a little bit biased. I also come here with the understanding as a professional musician, watching several of my colleagues play in your orchestras and do a fantastic job season after season. that what they deserve is pretty important, but also the communities that we live in is, quite frankly, a little bit more important. And to be able to see the impact of this work over a period of time, to reimagine is pretty much to form a new conception of what is possible. Simply to imagine is just to guess. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm serious. Thank you. I'm the product of public school music education. I'm a graduate of the New World Symphony. I was a professional principal in a major symphony orchestra for 15 years, and now I'm an orchestra administrator. Thank you. What I do is important. What I do is important. We all have to do this. There's generations of people after 2023 waiting for what we do to get to them. The duck is calling me.
The duck's calling me already. I haven't even started. We are an orchestra. Any group of people is an orchestra. Any people like-minded who want to do something together is an orchestra. And we can make this work in 2023. Orchestras are already relevant in society. Society just doesn't know it. So we can tell them the internet, the possibilities of technology means we can reach everyone. We could never have done that before. So my vision is a world of orchestras. Thanks.
I'm going to end with an invitation. There's a gentleman named Bill Joy who has what's been coined as a law that goes that no matter where you work, 90% of the smart people work somewhere else. I think he worked for Microsoft, I'm not sure. There's a corollary to Joy's law, which is that no matter where you work, 90% of the great ideas live somewhere else. So my invitation for you is next time you feel stuck, next time you feel like your job is weighing you down and you don't have any space or time for creativity, go to a museum. Wander through the galleries, give yourself some time and space to step back from your day-to-day troubles and just think and dream and imagine, because that's one of the things we do, is give people space for imagination and room to breathe. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you.
So maybe another tip. There is a group in New York and DC in the global development space, and each year at their kind of annual events, they hold what they call a fail fair. And they have wine and food, and the boss will introduce the person that lost $40,000 on a project. And that person will have 10 minutes, 10 slides to tell the story of what was their vision, what went wrong, and what were the lessons learned. So I would, and there's some crying and laughing. The more people drink, the more crying and laughing there is. But I would recommend that you consider a similar type of fail-fair activity at future conferences so we can all avoid making the same mistakes more than once. So, thank you.
38 years ago, a professional musician, an economist, and a politician created a musical miracle. It was based on giving the citizens of that country the opportunity to make classical music at an extremely high level. The benefit of that, 38 years later, that there's 500,000 kids spending 4 hours a day. They've created people like Gustavo Dudamel, musicians in major orchestras in Europe and the United States. They have also created this flagship group that tours the world, and I'm sure within every orchestra in this room would, in a way, drool to have the type of success that these young students have had over the past several years. A couple of weeks ago, the new president of this country decides to double the impact of this program and double the funding to make sure that 1 million kids within the next several years are reached, not with screens in front of the orchestra and dancers and people flying in front of the stage or apps, but with Tchaikovsky and Brahms and Beethoven happening in little small towns, under trees, in little garages, in plazas, in community centers all over the country. And to think that within all of the knowledge of all of the smart people that we have, even in great cities like Philadelphia, that this is something that we can't build in a third of the amount of time that it took Dr. Abreu to build the musical miracle that we all know as El Sistema. That it's happening in all of our backyards in just about every single orchestra, and to encourage you to find meaningful ways to connect with this growing movement and to find out how this powerful thing we call orchestras can serve at the service, of the people and also within the communities that we're in. Thank you.
So thank you all. This was just amazing to listen to all the creativity, to hear all the ideas, the freedom of stepping outside of yourself and just dreaming and imagining what the future is going to look like. It's not will look like, is going to look like, because all of you are going to make it happen. So let's end by where we actually started. Let's all stand up again, please, and we're going to repeat the exercise, okay? Because it's all with you. So again, choose the same person, stare them right in the eye, and say, I am so-and-so. I have a dream for America's orchestras. And I am the future of America's orchestras. Thank you very much.
Now, we know that all except two of you are wishing you'd won a complimentary registration, but no matter, we know that you're already planning on coming to Seattle next June. And to get you really revved up, please welcome Simon Woods, Executive Director of the Seattle Symphony.
Thank you, Jesse. I'd like to say, first of all, a big thank you to everybody in St. Louis. This has been a fantastic conference. Thank you to Fred and the team, and thank you to the brilliant St. Louis volunteers. Thank you. Now, when you leave the conference today, you're going to go to the airport and you're going to go home on a Boeing plane with a cup of Starbucks coffee. And you get where I'm going. And you're going to type your emails on Microsoft Outlook, and then when you finish with that, you're going to relax a little bit and you're going to read your book on your Amazon Kindle. And you might even have booked your tickets on Expedia. And when you get back home, maybe you're going to go with your families to Costco on Saturday morning and do your shopping. And each one of those things that you have done comes from a Seattle-based company. Seattle's had an outsized impact on the way we live our lives. And we are absolutely psyched next year to have you all there, because we want to have a conference that has an outsized impact on the way we live our lives as orchestra managers and involved in this wonderful business. We are really, really excited to have you in Seattle. It's a wonderful place. If you haven't been there, it's a very nice place to spend a few days, and we're planning a fabulous conference. So please come. Look forward to seeing you there. Thanks.
Thank you, Simon. So thank you all for being with us this week. We hope you had a great and productive time, that you've shared ideas with each other. And I see now in the back of the room a lot of glasses of wine. And so grab one and celebrate with us. Thank you.